Today I'll be discussing the Philippines politics and governance. To begin with, let's go back in history. The Philippines is one of the countries in Southeast Asia in the western part of the Pacific Ocean. It is an archipelago and is composed of 7,640 islands. In 1565, the Philippines was conquered by Miguel Lopez de Legazpi, and Miguel Lopez de Legazpi established a capital, which is Manila. The colonizations lasted for 333 years, which is ended on 1898. The Philippines was named after from King Philip II of Spain during the colonization of the Spaniards in the 16th century here in our country. The Philippines' political structure is a democratic and republic with a unitary government. What is unitary government? Unitary government is a system of the government where a single central government has the complete authority over all other political subdivisions, meaning to say the central government has supreme power authority over all the political unit. The local government only have the powers that the central government delegates to them. The Philippines has a separation of powers among the three branches. What are the three branches of the government? The executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. The executive branch carries out and enforced law. It's composed of president and vice president who are elected by direct vote and serve a term of 6 years. The president is the head of the state and also the head of the government. Under the Constitution, the president grants and have the authority to select or appoint the cabinet. The role of the executive branch is to implement what is done by the legislative. The legislative branch is authorized to make law, alter, and repeal them through the power vested in the Philippines Congress. In this institution is divided in two houses, the Senate and the House of Congress. The upper house of Congress, the Senate, composed of 24 senators elected at large by qualified voters. The senators serve 6 years term and can be re-elected but not for 3 consecutive terms. The lower house, composed of 250 members elected from the legislative district and through the party list system. The judicial branch interpret a meaning of the law, applies the law in individual cases, and decided if law is violated the Constitution. The judicial power shall be vested in one Supreme Court and such lower court as may be established by law. The judiciary role are the one who interpret or interpreter of the law has been approved by the President. The Supreme Court of the Philippines, composed of 15, 1 Chief Justice and 14 Associate Justice. The Supreme Court is the highest court in the country with the power of judicial review, meaning can be determined whether the law and the government action are constitutional or not. The lower court below the Supreme Court are regional trial courts, municipal trial courts, and specialized courts such as the Sandigan Bayan, Anti-Graft Court, and the Court of Appeals. Let's go to next slide. The local government. The Philippines is divided into provinces, cities, municipalities, and barangays. Each of these are local government units. Has a degree of autonomy. The Local government are tasked with implementing the policies at the local level. They elect their own official, including governors, mayors, and councilors, by direct vote and the popular vote within the jurisdiction. Within the respected territorial jurisdiction, the local government unit shall ensure and support, among other things, the preservation and enrichment of the culture and promote health and safety. The main purpose or the other purpose of the local government is supplying the goods and services and also the represent and involve citizens and determine the specific local public needs, how these local needs can be met.
So, I will be continuing our report ni Rex. So, we have here culture. The Philippines culture fabric is a fascinating blend of indigenous, Asian, Spanish, and American influences. One of the only predominantly Catholic nations in Asia, religious festivals such as Sinulog in Cebu and Ati-Atihan in Kalibo are central to the country's cultural identity. So when we say Philippines, what comes to mind good is their famous their famous mga festivals, which is ang pinaka famous is kaning yung Sinulog, which is celebrated in Cebu ara in if I'm not mistaken, I think it's the third Sunday of January. Then people goes to Cebu gyud kay it's it's very fun when they celebrated this, when Sinulog is being celebrated. And then also kanang they many people believe that if magpray ka ni Senior Santo Niño, ang imong gipray is matinuod. Aside from festivals, naasab tay ginatawag nga pagkakaisa, which is pagkakaisa is derived from the Indonesian people. So na kanang pagkakaisa nato as Filipinos, it is inspired by the Indonesians. And then also bayanihan. Bayanihan is kanang helping each other, like community cooperation. And also appeal sa culture nato mga Filipinos is kanang pag ingon og po at opo, then kanang pagmamano. Now let's proceed to the political culture. Filipino politics is often characterized by a mix of dynastic politics, where political power is concentrated in a few families, and patronage politics, where political leaders rely on providing benefits to their supporters in exchange for loyalty. So for example, ani niya kay ang leader is iyang hatagan o kanang work ang isa ka family in exchange nga kato nga family is they will be loyal to him or to her forever. Kanang there's sa Philippines kay uso jud kay ng utang na loob. So if there's what we call utang na loob from a politician, so if dili nimo siya kaya bayaran in money or sa iyang nagama sa imo par sa imong family, ang imong ibayad ato is katong loyalty nga no matter what happened, you and your family will support him or her. Then kani nga system kay mag-lead gini siya nga og dominance and power sa mga political families kay dali raman kay ni gamon sa mga politicians dayon pila ra gyud pagtabang good para lang for the sake na makakuha simpatya sa mga tao. So now let's have the constitutional principles. The 1987 Constitution establishes the Philippines as the sovereign state with the principles of democracy, rule of law, and human rights. It also ensures civil liberties and outlines provisions, social justice, including the promotion of equality, labor rights, and the protection of the environment. The 1987 Constitution is the fundamental law of the land. It is the thing that the government uses to govern the country. So this constitution embodies the principles of democracy, human rights, and social justice, aiming to prevent abuses of power, to ensure government accountability. So kanin siya kay nag-serve din siya as legal framework that guides the that guides us people here in the Philippines to maprotektahan ta as people living here in the Philippines, and also other rights that we are allowed. And now let's proceed to the last part, which is the electoral system. Elections are held regularly to fill public offices, and the country uses a multi-member district system for national elections. So we have the presidential elections, which is held every 6 years with no re-election. And then we have congressional elections held every 3 years of the House of Representatives, while Senate elections occur every 3 years for the half of the seats. Local elections held every 3 years for local government positions like governors, mayors, and councilors. So for the katumulan sir og president na gina siya, I mean tanan, nadyo na siya educational qualification, or let's just say the qualification in running for president. Ang madiscuss rin ako is about the president only. So to run for president of the Philippines, a candidate must meet the following qualifications as stipulated in the 1987 Constitution. First one, natural born citizen. So, the candidate must be a natural born citizen. This means that the candidate has been a Filipino citizen from birth without need to go through naturalization. Next, at least 40 years old. Makalanswer ka og president if you are already 40 years old and above. And then, third one, we have a resident of the Philippines at least 10 years. The candidate must have resided in the Philippines for at least 10 years immediately preceding the election. Before siya mulansar, dapat 10 years na siyang gapoy sa Philippines. Fourth is registered voter. Fifth is not have committed any crimes, of course. Dapat limpyo ang atong konsensya. Wala zero ang atong limpyo ta sa NBI. Next, we have term limit. So, 6 years na gina siya taman, and then no re-election. Cannot run for re-election, nor can person who has held the office of a president for more than half of a term in the event of a vacancy. And that's all for the qualifications of the running for the president.
I'm going to discuss the background of Singapore. Singapore is a highly developed city-state located in Southeast Asia, known for its strategic location, rich cultural heritage, and remarkable transformations into a global economic hub. Its background can be divided into several key periods. First is early history and founding. Singapore's history dates back to the 2nd century when it was a trading port known as Temasek, or a sea town in Malay. In the 14th century, Singapore, then called Singapura, Lion City, was founded by Sang Nila Utama, a Srivijayan prince from Palembang. The name was inspired by his sighting of a lion on the island. It became a significant trading hub due to its strategic location at the crossroads of maritime routes. Colonial era in 1819, Sir Stamford Raffles, a British official with the East India Company, established a trading post in Singapore to challenge Dutch dominance in the region. Singapore grew rapidly as a free port, attracting traders and immigrants from China, India, the Malay Archipelago, and beyond. In 1824, it became a British colony, part of the Strait settlements alongside Malacca and Penang. During World War II and Japanese occupation, Singapore fell to the Japanese in 1942 and was under Japanese occupation until 1945. This period was marked by hardship, including forced shortages, forced labor, and executions. So, road to independence, post-war era. After the war, Singapore returned to British rule but faced challenges such as political unrest and economic struggles. So, self-government in 1959. Singapore achieved internal self-governance with Lee Kuan Yew becoming its first prime minister. Merger with Malaysia in 1963, Singapore joined Malaysia to gain independence from British rule but left in 1965 due to political and economic disagreements. On August 9, 1965, Singapore became an independent nation. It faced challenges such as lack of natural resources, a small domestic market, and high unemployment. Under Lee Kuan Yew's leadership, Singapore focused on industrialization, housing, education, and infrastructure development. Today, Singapore is one of the world's most prosperous nations with a strong economy based on finance, trade, and technology. It is known for its multicultural society blending Chinese, Malay, Indian, and Eurasian influences. Despite its small size, Singapore plays a significant role in global politics, economics, and culture. This transformation from a humble fishing village to a global powerhouse is often regarded as a model of effective governance and visionary leadership. Next, I'm going to discuss the ideology and philosophy of Singapore. The ideology and philosophy of Singapore are deeply rooted in practical governance, economic pragmatism, multicultural harmony, and meritocracy. These principles have guided its transformation from a resource-poor nation to a global powerhouse. First, I'm going to discuss the pragmatism. Pragmatisms are the policies that based on practical solutions rather than ideology or political dogma. Example, economic policies focused on growth, stability, and adaptability. Adoption of policies from other successful nations while tailoring them to Singapore's context. Next is meritocracy. Meritocracy are people awarded based on ability and performance rather than connections or background. Example, scholarships and opportunities for the best performing individuals regardless of socio-economic status. Leadership positions are filled by the most competent individuals. Next is multiculturalism and social harmony. This explains promoting unity and equality among its diverse ethnic groups like Chinese, Malays, Indians, and others. Example, policies like public housing quotas ensure ethnic integration. Recognition of multiple official languages such as English, Mandarin, Malay, and Tamil, celebrating major cultural and religious festivals. Next is communitarianism. This emphasis on community over individualism, balancing personal freedoms with societal responsibilities. Example, strict laws to maintain public order or anti-littering, anti-vandalism. Another example is encouragement of collective responsibility in housing and public spaces. Next, I'm going to discuss the economic pragmatism and globalization. This focuses on integrating with the global economy while fostering innovation and sustainability. Example, transformation into a hub for finance, trade, and technology. So another example is strategic investment in education, infrastructure, and research. Next is the rule of law. Strong legal framework to maintain order, security, and trust. Example, transparent governance with minimal corruption, and enforcement of laws to ensure safety and stability of the people. Next is self-reliance and hard work. Encouraging citizens to take personal responsibility and contribute to society. Example, like social programs that promote self-reliance such as Central Provident Fund or CPF, savings. Emphasis on education and skills development, more on skills development. Next is visionary leadership, guided by long-term vision and adaptability to changing global dynamics. Example, Like founding Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew's focus on creating a first world economy. Leadership that anticipates and mitigates challenges like housing shortages or climate change. In conclusion, Singapore's ideology and philosophy reflect a unique blend of pragmatism, meritocracy, and community values. These principles have fostered rapid development, social harmony, and resilience, making it a model nation in governance and development.
Form of government in Singapore. Singapore is a unitary parliamentary republic where the president is the head of state and the prime minister is the head of government. And cabinet is composed of ministers and and appointed by the prime minister. Singapore has a single chamber parliament. So this is not the same with the government of the Philippines because the Philippines is presidential. So it means nga walay prime minister ang Philippines. Ang Philippines is bicameral pud siya. So ang bicameral it means nga ang Philippines is divided into two houses which is the House Representative and the upper house where the House of Senate. Philippines, the head of government is and the head of state is the president. Meaning isa lang ang presidente, siya ra mo'y magdumala sa gobyerno ug sa nasod. Siya pud ang mahimong ambassador in terms of international personality. And next, the role of president. The role of president is the ceremonial head of state and approves the appointment of the prime minister. Siya mo'y tig-approve sa prime minister. Signs bills into law, though in practice this is often a formality. Siya mo'y tig-sign sa law, sa bills. Oversees the protection of nations, reserves and public sector integrity. Siya mo'y tig-protektar. Appoints the key figures such as the Chief Justice in consultation with the Prime Minister. It also acts check on the executive power of the government. President is elected for a 6-year term. There are no limits to the presidency. So meaning nasa 6-year term pero wala sa gilimit kung kapila siya mo dagan o pagka presidente. The elected president is a major constitutional and political change. Under the revision, the president can veto government budgets and key public appointments. Presidente, pwede siya mo veto sa government budgets. This is to safeguard the national reserves and the integrity of the public service. The change meant that the elected president now has a custodial function in addition to the ceremonial and community roles. Ang elected president karon sa Singapore siya ra gyapon mo ra gyapon yang function siya ra gyapon sa ka ceremonial. Next, the Prime Minister. This is the role of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is the head of government and the leader of the cabinet. So, ang Prime Minister, siya mo'y head of government, dayon siya mo'y leader sa cabinet. Where the cabinet is composed of the ministers, meaning members of the ministers. Lead the executive branch of government, siya mo'y ang Prime Minister siya gyapon siya sa executive branch of government, directs the formulation of policies and laws, appoints ministers to the cabinet, oversees the function of the civil service and government departments. The Prime Minister appoints the general. General is the Attorney General, is the legal advisor to the government and public prosecutor. Muna siya function po sa Attorney General nga i-appoint sa Prime Minister. Siya mo legal advisor sa government sa public prosecutor. The Attorney General is an elected member of is not an elected member of parliament or a member of the cabinet. So dili siya elected nga di na siya moagi og nga election kay ang prime minister may mo-appoint niya. The term of office of he is appointed by the prime minister and has security of tenure. The term of office of the prime minister is 5-year term. 5-year term ra ang kuan pero renewable siya, renewable ang prime minister. Lead the largest party coalition or of parties. Siya pod ang mag-lead sa mga party system sa Singapore. Then the prime minister is the leader of the majority party in parliament. Next. The role of ministers. Ministers, head of government, department and oversee various portfolios such as finance, education, and health. Muna say function sa ministers where the prime minister lead. Responsible for formulating, implementing, and enforcing policies in their respective areas. Work collective as a cabinet to advise the president and enact laws. So ang mga cabinet ministers po kay kuan po sa ating advice po sa president then mag-enact sila og laws. Next. The Singapore is composed of 3 branches of government. So parehara pud siya sa Philippines nga naapod sa kuan gyapon composed gyapon siya og kanang 3 branches of government where the executive, legislative, and judiciary, pero it different from the government of Singapore. As executive branch, president, where it is vested president, prime ministers, and cabinets. Sa executive branch sa Singapore kay ang ilaang kuan is vested by the president, prime minister, and cabinet, whereas sa kuan sa Philippines kay ang executive kay ang branch kay ang presidente ra ang magkuan. So responsible for implementation of the laws and administrative of the country. Ang function sa kuan sa executive nila kay siya may responsible sa pag-implement sa mga balaod sa administrative country. Legislative branch is vested in the legislature. The legislature consists of the president and the parliament. So ang legislative branch kay it is vested on the president and the parliament. So ang parliament meaning composed siya sa mga cabinet ministers, sa mga ministers. Unicameral legislature with 98 members of parliament, MPs, or including elected members, appointed members, and not constituency members. So unicameral meaning usa lang ka houses siya. Usa lang siya. Elected 5-year term and renewable. MPs are elected to represent the people and pass laws. Siya ang mga elected ministers kay kuan siya kanang siya may magrepresentar sa katawhan o magpasa sa mga balaod. Judiciary branch. Judiciary branch are the courts are independent of the government. So ang korte nagadepende gyapon sa government. The highest court is the Court of Appeal with the chief as its head. So ang the highest court kay divide na say compose siya og kuan the Court of Appeal and the and with the chief as its head. Include the Supreme Court. Supreme Court or the Court of Appeal and the High Court. The legal system in Singapore. Singapore follows the common law system inherited from the British colonial period. It is characterized by the application of legal precedents, statutes, and judicial decisions. So ang legal system sa Singapore based on the British colonial period. Nakabase ang ilang legal system sa British. So there are three sources of law. First one is the statute law. Laws passed by parliament. Ang balaod nga gipasa dito sa parliament. Gikan sa parliament. Common law. Common law. Second common law. Judge-made law developed through judicial decisions. So, develop siya ang balaod through judicial decisions. Constitutional law. The third one, constitutional law, the supreme law of Singapore, establishing the structure of government and citizens' fundamental rights. So, constitutional law, siya ang supreme law of Singapore. Court system in Singapore. The court system Singapore is the highest court in the land which hears constitutional and civil criminal cases. So ang court system Singapore again siya is the highest court in the land which hears the criminal cases, constitutional and civil. The Singapore judiciary is made up of the Supreme Court, the state courts, and the family justice courts. So, ang Singapore judiciary is nag-compose siya og Supreme Court, the state courts, and the family courts. The Supreme Courts consist of the General Division, the Appellate Division, and the Singapore International Criminal Court. Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal is the apex court in Singapore. It hears all criminal appeals against decisions made by the General Division in the exercise of its original criminal jurisdiction. It also hears prescribes categories of civil appeals such as appeals arising from a case relating to constitutional or administrative law, appeals arising from a case relating to the law of arbitration, and appeals arising from the case relating to insolvency. So the Appellate Division of High Court. Appellate Division of High Court, it hears the civil appeals that are otherwise not allocated to the Court of Appeal. It does not have any criminal jurisdiction and does not hear criminal appeals.